welcome to this week's episode of the Alchemy Lounge Podcast. Now, today's episode is a little bit different because I am on my own, which is different because we've had so many gorgeous guests have interviews on the podcast. But today, at the time of recording, it's actually Christmas Eve. And when I actually schedule this, I'm going to schedule this for next week. Actually, I'm going to insert myself in between some of our gorgeous guests. And I wanted to talk about the 5 main lessons that I have experienced in 2025. And initially, I was going to do 25 lessons from 2025, which I absolutely could have created. Like, I can probably think of more than 25 lessons. However, for the sake of keeping this podcast short and sweet and digestible, I have picked my top 5 to share with you today. So I'm going to start off with business. And this year has been a major evolution in my business, which some of you will have witnessed and seen. And part of that was a rebrand, which is very interesting because one of the lessons, kind of as a side note to this, is we often rebrand and burn things down and start again when it's actually completely unnecessary. So my rebrand was actually sparked from getting married, which is one of the most super exciting and wonderful things to come out of 2025. And that led me to become a different version of myself, which I have spoke about on previous episodes and might come back to as well, because I think the identity piece is so key and so important. But for me, that was the trigger of the rebrand. But I have seen it countless times, and I have done it myself as well in previous rebrands and like iterations of the business, where we just stop what is working or what is doing okay and burn it all down and start again. Because we seem to have this almost like a perception that if it's not perfect and if it's not making us like an overnight billionaire, that we're kind of like, oh, well, it's broken and that idea is not working, or it's not worth me pursuing that or continuing with that. And we want to have more consistency. We want to start to work more with the compound effect and know that even if we're making like a 1% improvement or tweak or adjustment, that it's going to lead to results, whether that be in business or any other area of your life as well. But one of the main things that has really stood out for me in business this year is not having to be the guru or the leading expert in any particular given area. So whatever field you're kind of working in, if you have a business, it doesn't matter if there are another 1,000 people doing what you do, because they won't do it in the same way that you do it. And I think it was the lovely Denise Duffield Thomas that says it's either a book or a podcast, to be a contributor, not a guru. And I think that is so, so important to remember, that the more of us that are contributing to conversations on these important topics in the area that you work within. So for me, it's within manifestation. And there are hundreds of coaches working in manifestation. But you will hear and you will receive things differently from each and every one of us. And also, thinking about who we are divinely connected to and the clients that we are destined to serve anyway. There are certain clients for me, certain clients for you, and certain clients for other coaches and mentors or practitioners. So it doesn't matter that you're not the only one. And in fact, it's brilliant if you're not the only one, because it means there is market demand there. So actually, strategically, that's great. But also, we all contribute. And people will hear things differently from different people, and people will vibe with other people's energy very, very differently as well. And I've yet to share this officially, but when I was at the event in Arizona earlier this year, there were, thousands of people there. I absolutely wasn't the only manifestation coach. And that's awesome, because I've now got a great connection with another lady who is in the same field as me. And that is fantastic, because we can support one another and learn from one another. But also there were other coaches in the same field there who I didn't vibe with. And it was just another reminder of this, that even though we're in the same zone, if you like, we're all going to attract different people because different people are destined to work with each and every one of us. So it's brilliant to have more than one person contribute to a conversation, because if you imagine it like you were the only one talking about a certain subject, it'd be a really lonely conversation because you're the only contributor. So I just think that's gorgeous and something to remember, that there is absolutely space for everybody. So if ever you're worrying or getting anxious and thinking, oh well, I want to do this, or I want to be in this area or this field, but there's so many other people doing it and I don't know where I'm going to fit in, there is space for all of us, because there are also people that need all of us as well. So that was my one of my main business lessons from the year. Now, the other major thing this year, obviously, was the wedding, which was awesome, and not without its dramas as well. So, my lesson from the wedding was firstly to kind of release control, and those feelings of being able to control everything and manage everything. And that's not the case, even down to people putting chairs out in the wrong place on the day, you know, little things. But the biggest thing from this was learning about expectations. Now, unfortunately, the side of the wedding that was less pleasant with both myself and Danny, we actually lost friendships throughout the process of wedding planning, if you like, and that journey to the aisle. And these were friendships that neither one of us, if you said both of you were going to have a friend that is no longer going to be a friend by the time you get married, and you asked me to pick who that was, I wouldn't have been able to anticipate these friendships dissolving, if you like. So the lesson from this was, one, we can't control other people, and to not have expectations of people as well, because they can really take you by surprise, and it can be positive surprise or it can be really upsetting surprise as well. And even now, it feels very surreal to think that we don't have these people in our lives anymore. But also, that was how it was supposed to be. And it's okay to release people. And this is kind of what 2025 has been all about, right? It's the year of the snake. It's a 9-year in numerology, and it's endings, and it's things being released and things that aren't coming with us into the next chapter in 2026. So my lesson from this is to share with you all, to release that need for control, but also let go of your expectations that you perhaps unknowingly put onto other people as well. So yeah, that was a big lesson from the wedding. There were many lessons from the wedding, but that was one that I wanted to share with you all. Another lesson number 3, is, I've actually touched on this already. So the compound effect when it comes to effort. So rather than burning things down and starting again and starting from scratch with various different goals or targets that you have in your life, is remember the compound effect. So even if you make a 1% improvement or change, or you do 1% more, or you be 1% more like the version of you that you are manifesting, and they're already here anyway, then that really compounds over time. So we might not think, I don't know, I guess the easiest one to illustrate this is when we talk about like our weight or being on like a weight release journey. And I've definitely experienced this myself, where you think, oh, releasing 1 pound a week, and it feels so like insignificant. But if you did that every week over a year, that is a really significant change. And when it comes to effort, if you put in 1% more effort each and every day or each and every week, over time, that compound effect is insane. So just remember the compound effect when you're thinking like, oh, well, I need to do everything all at once. And especially as we come into January, which you've probably heard me speak about my feelings around resolutions and the pressures that we, for some bizarre reason, put on ourselves each January. Remember that you don't have to do it all at once. Just 1%. 1% will compound, and just see how that feels for you. Try that one on instead, as an alternative to significant amounts of pressure and having to achieve everything all at once. Just 1%. Focus on the 1%. And 1% actually moves the needle and makes a difference. Number 4 is connected to manifesting. And this is something that I am asked all the time, is either how to manifest or the process to manifest, or how did I manifest my soulmate? How did I manifest Danny? How did I manifest being self-employed and having a successful business? All these things. It's always the how. How do we do it? Now, there are absolutely processes. I wrote a book on one of my processes, and there are tools and there are strategies and things that you can do to enhance your manifestations. But you're already manifesting. You don't need to do anything in order to manifest. You need to be. And this is the absolute key, and something that is often kind of forgotten, because as humans we default to the do, which is bonkers because we're human beings, not doings. But it seems to be a natural state that we want to do. And if we're not doing, we don't feel like we are being productive, and therefore we're not going to achieve results. But I have tested this and I have experimented with this throughout this year and seen what the results have been and what the changes have been. And it always comes back to energy and frequency. That always comes first. So whoever you are being, whatever frequency, whatever energy you are vibrating at, is the biggest influence on your manifestations and the reality that you see around you. And this is not to say that we can't feel bad, quote unquote, or we can't feel negative emotions. Again, quote unquote, what is negative? We can't feel a certain way, and we've always got to be high vibe. You all know how I feel about that absolute bollocks. We don't have to be high vibe all the time. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your energy and your frequency, and the person that you are being is more important than anything that you do, any process that you have, any strategies that you're following, any tools that you are using. Energy comes first. So if you do nothing else, look after your energy, look after your soul, look after your physical vessel and the energy and frequency in your auric field. Okay, it's the most important thing, and this is why I have created the university. So you've got not only the processes, but also you're learning the psychology behind manifestation and your favorite spiritual tools as well. So when you are nurturing your energy and your frequency, and you're looking, oh, what are the planetary alignments right now, or what moon phase are we in? How is that impacting on my energy and my frequency? You know, on a deeper level, the psychology behind that, and actually what you're interpreting from the moon phases or Mercury retrograde or whatever it may be, what you're interpreting and what you're sensing is actually coming from within you. So you therefore know what your energy and frequency is at all times. So you can work with that and you can enhance that as you need to. So when it comes to manifesting, energy is the priority. And lastly is a bit of a myth that I think I've spoken about this for a few years now, but it's been more predominant in 2025. And this is the work-life balance myth. Because another thing that people come to me with a lot of the time is, how do I feel more balanced? How do I get more work-life balance? And especially for those who are either starting up a business or running a business alongside a full-time job, which is obviously what I did for 5 years. And I get it. Okay, it's a lot of juggling and spinning plates, and it can feel very hectic, especially when you've got family life alongside that. You're trying to have a social life, you're trying to look after your health and have some perhaps you time as well. Like, it can feel really intense, and we all seem to seek this balance, and it's a myth. It doesn't exist. What does exist is harmony and rhythm and peace and calm and all those wonderful things. But when we're trying to strike a balance, all that happens is you will do one thing exceptionally well and you will neglect another. You will do another thing really poorly. So, say for example, you are juggling business and a full time job. Let's just use that as an illustration. You will do one of those things really well. So, either you will be excelling in your career and giving all your energy and your focus and your attention to your job and doing really well, or you will be giving that to your business. But trying to split that into both, you're splitting your energy, right? You're splitting your focus, you're splitting your time, and therefore you end up with mediocre results in both. So rather than striving for that work-life balance, what I have learned, especially in 2025, when I've been wedding planning and turning my business into a full-time venture. So yes, I had more time because I left employment, but it's been a whole different sort of creation of the business when it's your full-time job. So what I have learned is that we want to be laser focused. You want to make things as simple as possible. So focus on one thing. And if you can, we want to do that for like an entirety of a day, if possible. Because what happens when you go from one task to another, you have like that connection time where actually you're flipping your focus and you're shifting your focus and attention, but you actually lose momentum by doing that. So you can absolutely do that, and I sometimes do this, and I call it flip flopping, where I will do something that is like related to business and work, and then I will flip and do something that is more personal and looking after myself. And then you can kind of flip flop throughout the day. But that does create a bit of distortion because you're changing your focus from one thing to another. So you kind of lose time and momentum as you do that. So if you can, block time in your calendar, in your diary. So, I will have like a CEO day where I am just solely focused on the CEO tasks of running a business. I will then have like a social media day, or I will have a personal day. So I am giving my focus, my 100% into just one thing. So if you looked across like a calendar month, there's balance there over the course of a month, but I'm not trying to find a balance in every given moment. So in any particular moment, you are focusing your attention, you're being laser focused on just one thing. And then when you need to, you flip flop onto another rather than just trying to get this balance at all times, trying to balance the kids, work, social life, everything else all at once. You're just splitting your focus and your attention. And as we know, where your attention goes, energy flows, and that's how you create the best results in that particular area. So something that can help with that, if you've not already seen it, there is a free training on my website for looking at your life and doing like a life audit and an inventory. So you can kind of see where perhaps needs a little bit more attention, a bit more focus, whereas other areas can kind of rest and chill out for a little bit. So check that out if you haven't already. I'll pop the link in the show notes for you as well. But they are my 5 biggest lessons of 2025 that I wanted to share with you. So do let me know in the comments if any of these in particular stand out for you, and also what your lessons have been for 2025. And I wish you the most wonderful holiday season if you're listening to this before Christmas or before the new year. I hope you have a magical time, and I will see you in 2026.